expect it. When I think about it before I put it on, I feel nervous, but once it's on, it's like you're protected. So you're safe inside it. So it's quite a good psychosis metaphor, really. Because most people are psychotic. I think their world that we find scary is actually quite safe for them. So it surprises me. And it makes you feel like you want to do strange physical movements that sort of dramatise the horror. I don't know. I don't want to do that or something very attention, ordinary. So it's just like a monument or something. So I went to see The Tempest, done with puppets a few years ago. And they were huge, great puppets. They were, you know, some of them were 15 feet high, with people standing underneath them, holding them up on poles. And it was just one of the most enjoyable. I didn't listen to a word of the play, but I just loved watching the constructions. And it was brilliant. And I think something like that, you start trying to create iconic imagery. I love films like The Labyrinth and stuff like that. You know, and Dark Crystal, and I like those sort of fantasy things, but I like the idea. Why do they always have to be in another world? You know, why can't they be in this world? So, you know, so we started sort of dominating nature. And so to me, it's like, that's normal. What's abnormal is the fact that people don't make stuff and that people have to have something made for them. That's weird. You know, and to me, it's like, you know, whatever you can be creative in lots of ways. You can be creative driving a cab. You know, you can be creative on a telephone switchboard if you want to. It's not about being an artist. I think that can be a real pompous thing. And to me, it's a challenge to always try and come up with something. I don't mind it being referenced. I don't mind people saying, "Oh, your work's like this." It's like, I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me, because it is. But I'm always trying to do something that's mine. And the only bit that's interesting to me is the people's reaction to it. So I'm always, if people don't really react to it, that's what disappoints me. I don't mind if people like it or not. You know, I don't see it as, if someone doesn't like it, I don't really see that as negative. I think if someone's against it, or if someone sort of really just attacks the work or attacks me, you know, I might see that as a bit negative, because I don't know why they would do that. But so far that hasn't really happened, which surprises me. Human beings are naturally creative. They want to manipulate their environment. They want to make images separate to themselves. You know, so they want to, you know, that's why they created the idea of a god with a personality. It's a creative thing to do. I mean, I think the universe created us, but that's just the energy of existence itself. It's not really a separate entity. You know, and if you look at all the major, certainly the Eastern religions, and I think even the Western ones, they all say that we're all part of, you know, the Creator's part of every one of us, and we're all part of that. So the idea of separate being is just a creative way of trying to get your head around that, because trying to embrace eternity and infinity is beyond a finite being. And I think sometimes art can be very dictatorial. It doesn't leave you much choice. And I think even if you go back to sort of medieval times, when art was very regimented and very regulated, and there were, you know, real conventions and rules and patrons and all that stuff, you had to be apprenticed to someone and you had to do things a certain way. Even within that, if you study art, you find that even within that, those people were still trying to rebel against it by putting weird things in their pictures, like that elongated skull in that very famous picture, or putting eyeballs all over Queen Elizabeth's dress. But if I could have an extra head grafted on, I probably would. I'd probably be one of the people that think, yeah, that'd be quite cool having another head. You know, just because of the way people would react to it and what you might be able to do with it. I think that creative process exists at a cellular level. It's happening all the time. DNA's going into random combinations and things like that, and then each strain determines each person, and how well that person does is historically would be how able they are to survive, to reproduce and to compete. And now what you've got is a sort of a controlled world where where that factor is not so much. So it's kind of like, you know, the world is more safe, so people that wouldn't survive in nature will survive. And so for me, but you know, the creative bit actually comes from being alive. So the conscious thing about wanting to create, wanting to do stuff, wanting to be something different to what you are, if you think about it, it's quite, you can trace that logically right back to our genetics, right back to cells. Now, to me, that and what motivates a cell is the life of the universe, right? So in Buddhism, we believe the whole universe is alive, that it's one big creative life force, and we're all connected to it, we're all part of it, because there's no separation, because it's all the same, everything has that, but it's just about whether you can bring it out or not. But I think sometimes, you know, people that maybe you feel consciously sort of in conflict with or different to, there's something that links you at an unconscious level. So on my own belief, obviously I believe, you know, as a Buddhist, I believe in karma, so I don't believe anybody can even be in the same room unless they're connected. You know, I think if you're not connected karmically to people, why would you be in their environment? Why would they be in your environment? Why would you share an environment? I think if you weren't connected in some way, you couldn't acknowledge them. They couldn't acknowledge you. You know, so you have a kind of like a shared karma of being human. You have a shared karma of being here, in, you know, this country, and then in this town, and then in this environment right now. So to me, it's like, I don't know about attracting. I mean, there's this thing, isn't there? This popular, what's it called? The Secret, and they talk about the law of attraction, and that, you know, it's interesting, but it's kind of cobbled together from a load of different ideas. So I don't know whether there is a law of attraction. I do think that what you think about will tend to manifest over time. So the way you think you are and the way you think life is, you'll tend to find evidence to support that. It's like if you drive a Mini, you'll always notice Minis on the road. If you're pregnant, you'll notice other pregnant women all of a sudden, whereas you didn't notice them before, really. So I think what you dwell on and what you think about consciously, you tend to notice. So it seems like you attract those things into your environment. They're probably actually already there, but it's just what you're manifesting. And then that comes back to karma again, because your karma dictates, if you're impassive, your karma dictates what you put out and what you attract. But when you take conscious control of that process and you make choices about what you create, then you can choose what you attract. But it doesn't mean things will always go the way you want them to go, because there's other stuff operating at a deeper level. You know, so there's two sides to it. So it's not preordained and it's not random. It's not as simple as that. It's actually both, depending on what level of existence you're talking about. And I think over time people have come up with philosophies to try and simplify these processes to make it easier. A bit like having a clock that says 24 hours a day. I mean, you could have 2 hours a day if you wanted. Just be very long hours. Each hour would be 12 of the hours we use long, wouldn't it? But who says it's 60 minutes, or, you know, who says that? You know, you know, we blindly assume this is 2011, but a large proportion of the world's population, it's a different year altogether. The Islamic year is completely different, the Jewish year is completely different, Chinese year is completely different. But we've all chosen to say it's 2011 or 2011, I think we call it, isn't it? You know, it's only a model, isn't it? It's only a diagram, it's only a map or a layout. And I see, to be honest, I think philosophy and religion and theories, they are just that, and nothing wrong with that. I think, but we just need to acknowledge that's what it is instead, because reality is what it is, and it's kind of beyond explanation, which is the whole point. I think that's half the point of art, if you like, is art, because art goes outside of the norm. You know, always has done. It's taking pieces of reality and shaping them differently. Even if you go for something quite realistic and naturalistic, it's still a 2D representation of 3D. So it's still abstract. Regeneration of human values, right? And the problem is, in my sort of limited thinking, I can see that as a bit po-faced or a bit righteous, and sometimes it's hard to take the freedom you've got. And one of the perceptions is that, you know, oh, it's quite strict, and it isn't. It's actually, in Buddhism, we talk about that you attain Buddhahood as you are. So a big struggle for me was I was really scared, as somebody that people know in the context of doing, I mean, I give lectures on Buddhism, I go to Buddhist meetings, people know me in that context, but they didn't really know my art side. For a long time, they're very separate for a lot of people. So I was quite scared of kind of going public with my work, because I thought people would judge me and go, hang on, you're supposed to be a Buddhist, but you're doing these quite violent, aggressive, or difficult images, and you're messing around with censorship and nudity, and you swear, and you're doing things to do with Hitler and all sorts of stuff that might upset people. And so for a long time that really held me back. But what I had to break through, and I used my Buddhist practice to do this, what I had to break through was my own negativity, because that's all it was just fear. And actually, since I've done that, the funny thing is what comes out of it is the Buddhism comes out of it, but without very obvious images of Buddhism. Because I don't want that. I don't want any pictures of Buddha. It's like when people say, why don't you join Dharma arts or Buddhist artists or whatever. Well, the reason is because I don't want that stereotype. I want it to be me. The fact that I practice Buddhism is important to me, but it's not necessarily particularly important to the person consuming my art. It's like, I hope it might be interesting to them, and if it is, that's great, I'll talk to them about it. So it's an opportunity to engage with people. But if they don't want to engage with that, I don't want to push it on them either. It's the human genome, and about the Kabbalah, and about abracadabra, and about the connection to Dadaism, and to get to slang language in a nonsense way. And I told you about something that I might have done, but I decided not to do. It's more interesting that I never did it. It's more interesting as a story than it would be as a staged event. And that's part of what I do. Part of what I do is to not be specific. Because I think a lot of the time art can become a bit too intellectual, it all becomes a bit too, it's like this. Like when you start coming out with manifestos. Who says it should be like this or it should be like that? And so my whole thing is to not be like that. But then that's a set of rules in itself. So I'm constantly trying to break my own rules, or to just push things. And I love the idea of stories. I love the idea of someone saying, did you hear that, that Nigel Adams, he danced naked down the street covered in tomato ketchup? And someone goes, did he? Well, that's what I heard. Is it real, isn't it? Did it really happen or didn't it? It's more interesting that not knowing than it would be to have everything quantified and contained. That's why I'm always a little bit disappointed with just hanging work on the wall and selling work. I like it, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it. I love making money from my art. I have no problem with that, I have no issues around that. It's lovely that people see my work, it's nice to hang it, but that's not enough. If you're going to be an artist, really from the age, going way back through the Surrealists and the Dadaists and all that, one of my heroes is Dali, not fashionable, don't care, but Dali was a performance artist as well. He's a great painter, but he did a load of performance stuff. And if you go back to Andy Warhol, he said that, eventually in the artist of the future we'll just point at something and say it's art, and that makes it art. Now if you just go back to just making images, you're kind of regressing. So to me, I think I want to make images. In a way, there are more evidence that I'm an artist rather than actually the art itself. But what I'd really like to do is to be a person that kind of creates all sorts of things, even if that's stories that aren't even written down. The thing is, because of the stuff I've done, I've always been into art for a long time, but for a long time I didn't kind of try it as an artist, sort of officially. I was just being creative as a person and like teaching Tai Chi and doing self-development. And to me that's just as creative as making a bunch of pictures. So I've kind of got used to thinking this way, because when you're faced with different people, different experiences, you either have to just accept them, right? And I'm not a very accepting person actually. I'm kind of, or you take responsibility. And I'm much more a take responsibility sort of person, which rubs some people up the wrong way because they want me to be just, oh, everything's okay, it's all fine, I won't argue with anyone. I think if I see someone that's basically suffering, and they may not even be aware they're suffering, they may just think that's the way it is, but they're not aware they can do something about it. I feel as though if I can see that, I have responsibility to do something about that, whether they like it or not. Now they don't have to take that on board. They can refuse, that's fine, but it doesn't mean I'm just going to be quiet. And that's not maybe a very popular point of view, but that's how I am. And I have upset people with that in the past. If you look at the process of change, really change and growth, and I'm not being dismissive of people suffering, because suffering is suffering, and I'm opposed to suffering. Nevertheless, processes of change always involve conflict, and growth usually involves a level of pain. So it's about whether you can draw the value out of that, or whether you just see it as a terrible thing. That you get some people who've got like horrible illnesses and, you know, really disabled, but they're the most positive, lively people. And you get other person who's like their nails got split and it's the end of the world. You know, so it's dependent on the life condition of the individual. I don't know. This is really response, because when I did my first show, I was interviewed at the start of it, Heather Haythorne-Thwaite. Try saying that when you've had a few beers. Heather Haythorne-Thwaite interviewed me and she asked how I would feel if I sold my work. And I didn't really understand the question. I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, will you feel sad? Will you feel upset? And I've got this kind of, because I'm quite bullshit and I'm quite opinionated, I had this attitude that a lot of artists are very precious about their work. So I was a bit dismissive of the question, really. And I said, well, I'll be really pleased, because I just want to get rid of them. I said, because I want to, make some money and clear some space so I can make some more work. So I won't really feel anything, not that attached to it. And that was the case. I sold quite a lot of work from that show. Well over half of what I had up. Did really well out of it. So it was only when I sold the original Artichrist, which was done for that show, which was the show piece. Actually, that's the only time I've felt really emotional about selling a piece, because I think out of all the pieces, that was my favourite, and I really liked it. And there was part of me that had come to the conclusion I probably wasn't going to sell it, and I was just going to keep it because I was really proud of it. I felt that it was the best thing I'd ever done. So my response to that was, well, I've obviously got to try and do something to equal it that will appeal to me as the best thing I've ever done. I don't think I've really succeeded, to be honest. I like this picture. I'm pleased with it, but I still think the original Artichrist is better. So this one is, the first one was Artichrist 252, and this is Artichrist 354, and I've got. So no, I like the concept of the Artichrist because it's an irrational concept. I love the idea of an irrational concept. So if you have an irrational concept, it's a direct confrontation with our analytical sort of mindset, and I think that's done us a lot of harm. Establishment to me suggests stuckness, static, bored, boring, safe. So establishment to me is something that I'm probably always going to be against. If I became part of the establishment, I'd probably attack myself at that point. I think, but I think people, you can't avoid it. People are going to. I mean, I hope if I'm successful as an artist, it's inevitable I'll be seen as part of the art establishment, and young artists will hate me and attack me, and good luck to them, why not? I would encourage them to do so, but I would also encourage them to bring friends, because I'm not, I can put up a fight. Hello? Hello? Hello?
I don't know if there's a God. I don't know if there isn't. So if I had to make a decision, I'd say there is, because then I'd be safe, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. I've never had anything happen to me that makes me believe there's a God or there isn't. The closest I've come is when my son was born, and that seems to be an obvious miracle. But I don't know what created that miracle. But yeah, I would side with the people who like God, to be honest. Because, I mean, the argument against God is that the science explains it all, and there was a big bang and this and that happened. But you know, you can say what happened before. How did there become about a big bang in the first place? You know, so maybe there was something that started it all. But yeah, I don't know. That's the answer. I think there's a lot of art in photography, but it's not such a, I wouldn't say skill, but it's not on such a personal level. I do my pinhole photos, and although I like them, and some other people seem to like them, anyone can do it. I mean, you just got to aim the spot. If I'd invented the pinhole camera, or any camera, then I'd be much more chuffed than I am now just taking the photos. With painting, you're pretty much, you know, it's very basic stuff you're working with, and I mean, of course anyone can paint, but yeah, it's all just putting yourself into it. You can do that more than using another medium like a camera. Is there a war raging in heaven, a thunderous battle crashing amongst the clouds? For God has sent us an evacuee, no doubt with a miniature gas mask around his neck and clutching a Baker-like lunchbox. Is there a war raging in heaven, and yet here it is calm? For he has arrived inside his beautiful mother. No noise, no fuss, he is here and that is that. And we are in the grip of this strange, powerful silence, like distant lightning behind the dark sea, like a still morning before the birds sing, like the hush in the trenches before the shrill of the whistle. Is there a war raging in heaven that you should trust us, we who can scarcely look after ourselves? But we will care for this child, and when your war is over and he must return, he will have had a happy time of it, and will smile the glowing smile of the loved. That is my promise. And that's little Georgie boy. There is hell, and it's already happening on Earth. People are involved in it, and I mean, the prime example, the most famous example, would be somewhere like Auschwitz, and what they had to. I've read quite a bit about that place, and what the people had to go through. That I don't think you can get anything worse than that, because it's the physical suffering, and also the being torn apart from your family, and the worst image of that was that I read about was the prams being let out, empty prams being let out. I think it's like 15 wide, and the possession of empty prams went on for 2 hours, I think, and that sort of summed it all up for me. So I think there is hell on Earth, really. I don't think it's anywhere else. I love Germany a lot. I think they've got some good old ideas, and I go back to Berlin every now and then. It's one of I'd live there, I think, if I could sort of get things together. I think I might live in Berlin. I like to show my paintings to people because it's a bit of a sharing process. That's the reason I started painting. Was I realised that my mates who were already painting were sort of sharing their little life experiences with people, and it seemed like, you know, a nice thing to do. So it sort of gave me the right to paint myself, even though I couldn't do it. And that's why I paint. Aiming for stuff has never been a big part of my life, and that's why I've come a crop of money, right, financially, because I haven't got any. But you know, I've never been career driven or had any. You know, like I say, it's only when you have a family come along you start thinking, I better do something. I'm quite happy to drift along. I mean, in my paintings I would be very happy just to have small exhibitions, and afterwards a few people say, oh, I knew what you were getting at there, or, you know, I really like that one. That's all I would want from it. all that stuff, is painting and all that is definitely calming. Yeah, if you sit out there for a few hours, you feel calmer. And yeah, I mean the best thing is going for a walk. I think going out for a walk in the countryside. But if you can't do that, the next best thing is to do painting or even writing. And especially that's why I like pinhole photography, because you've got a bit of time to do stuff. Yeah, you can, you know, pinholes takes a couple of minutes exposure, and you can only take one photo at a time. You've got to change it in a dark bag, and therefore you're existing in that moment very much, and you're it's just you're enjoying it. It's not about getting somewhere; it's about doing it, and that's what I really like about that. I can't multitask. We've got a little film company called the Chatham Super 8 Cinema, and that's me and Billy and Simon and Julie. And we do a lot of we did it all on old Super 8 cine film, and they're all sort of like, most of them are a few minutes long. They're the longest. A couple go over that, and we just we make it. It's like everything we do. Everything I do certainly is you do make it as easy as you can, painless as possible. So we just say, right, we're going to do this, do that, and we film it in sequence, so you don't have to bother chopping it around too much. A few silly ones, they're my favourite ones, because I'm only good at silly things really. Billy's the one who's good at working out something a bit more serious. I did one called The Impossible Shoulder Leap of Death, and that's Billy runs down his garden and jumps onto my shoulders, which is quite impressive, but I'm not sure how death-defying it really is. But I'm quite a tall chap, and he's getting on. But the next one, if we're going to do another one, I would want to do exactly the same sort of thing, a nice little short film. I showed them in Berlin at an exhibition, and people laugh at them, in the right places, even the Germans. And halfway through it, I was telling them something or other, and someone said, a big German voice said, I said, I don't know what we can call these films, He said, grown men, what did he say? He says, grown men with nothing else to do. He's really chuffed with his witticism, but I thought it was quite good. It might make a good title. Certainly sums it up. Well, talking about me.
troubled mind. These fools are breaking up my world, and I need your little girl. I need to hold you near, to talk to me so sincere. I need your little girl to ease my troubled mind, to ease my troubled mind. The talk is of an end, all of which we depend. So I come out of your child, for you I would defend. I need your little girl to ease my troubled mind, 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 to ease my troubled mind. Thank you. Good night.
Hello? 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 Okay.
Go to a happy place.
Darkness at the break of noon eclipses both the sun and the moon. To understand, you notice soon that there is no sense in trying. Suicide remarks are torn from the fool to go mouth is a hollow horn. They're just wasted words. They prove to one that you're not busy buying, you're busy dying. I'ma take this bad offer me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. And I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Just like so many times before. I am knocking on heaven's door. My big black cloud is pulling down, and I feel so all alone, just like so many times before. I am knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
This life is just a bowl full of sorrow. A bird floats on a pale blue sky, and a daffodil forces its yellow head through a crusty tarmac, and lambs ping, as in the poems that were written a long time ago, poems of old. Does nature know there's a bloody war raging in Libya? Does it know that the cracks in the dreams of the Japanese are real? Does it know that the sweat drips down the fireman cutting out the young child from a wrecked car as the tears drip down the face of its broken mother? Does it know how many people will die of AIDS and how many junkies' brains will pop? Does it know that the people on job seekers are seeking anything but fucking jobs? If nature did know, nature wouldn't give a fuck. The hand that creates fish, that's questioning creation really. Do human beings have the capacity to create? And the words brandished about, you know, he's very creative, she's very creative. But do humans actually have the power to create anything? Or are they just mucking about with what's already been created by some greater force? So the hand that creates fish is the hand of God really. And images and symbolism represent the bread and fishes. Hello. And it's something which is always, well, I've always been interested in, but always questioned, is the bread and fishes parable. When do the fish actually appear, and when does the bread appear? So it's created out of nothing, which symbolises creation in general. Creation came out of nothing. And we as humans don't have the capacity for something to exist out of nothing. We use what is already there. So from one aspect, you're putting paint on a canvas and people would say you're creating something. But in my opinion, what you're doing is glorifying what God's created. So God created colour, and that colour on the canvas is paint. God created the canvas. God created you, so he created your mind. So to me, somebody says, oh, you're very creative, I just laugh, because I'm not creative at all. It's God who creates. Mary is a man. Mary is a man is, I painted that as a reaction to a really, really wacky theory that somebody has that Mary is a man. And she gave birth to Jesus. Jesus was actually her twin that had laid dormant within her body. Should have been born when Mary was born. It's not a theory I align myself to, but it sparked off the idea for the painting Mary as a man. I've used, first of all, what I did with it, I pasted pictures which I found stimulating for me onto a board and then washed over it. So there was images coming through the paint. Just as ideas might come out in the paint to the people observing it, there are actual images coming out of the paint. A pregnant woman, for example, and other images. Starman came about totally by chance. I was asked by Jasmine Maddock if I'd like to join a two-man show at Liverpool, and I said yes. I'm always open for any shows anywhere, anytime, any place. And Jasmine has an interest in surrealism. She calls herself a Stuckist surrealist. So I wanted to pull the show together by creating something that was on the surreal side. So surrealism, of course, as you know, is just a juxtaposition of objects or things that you normally wouldn't find together. So I took a Banksy stencil, some policemen on it, cut out some pictures, stuck that on, and not with a specific message, just to make a surreal painting to fit into the show. As some of my work does have a surrealist feel, but it's not meant to be specifically surrealist. However, as time unfolded, the symbolism and images in it did bear some relevance to Jasmine's life to some extent, but that's another chapter in another book. The Cloud of Unknowing, that came about by my love for St. John of the Cross, really, and the Christian mystics from the Middle Ages. The Christian mystics, they believe that if you say God, everybody will conjure up a different concept and a different image within their head. So the only way to be sure that you are praising God or having a relationship with God is through contemplation or meditation. So what the Christian mystics of the Middle Ages were saying was you have to unknow all the dogma, you have to unknow all the prejudices and just have a pure relationship with that caused us to exist, which most people call God, and Buddhists call inner self, Muslims call Allah, and the list goes on. Well, my relationship with God, I without knowing it, when I was a child, I used to sit in a field, and I didn't call it contemplation at the time. I used to sit there and think about the grass, I used to think about the sky, I used to think about the clouds, I used to find images in the clouds, and I used to think about how we came to be, although I wouldn't use those words at the time. What I probably thought was what made us. And then later on, I got on with my life. You go to school and you're told that doing things like that is stupid. You should be learning your times tables, you should be learning how to make money, you should be thinking about getting a good job and all things like that. And I wanted to follow a career in music, but didn't have the academic qualifications to go to the Royal School of Music, so I ended up joining the military and going to the Royal Military School of Music. And being part of the army, I didn't really see myself as being particularly religious or particularly anything really. I was just after a good time, and I was very fortunate. The regiment that I joined, the 1420th King's Hussars, one of the officers in that was Lord Brockett, so I was mixing with the aristocracy. Our Colonel-in-Chief was Princess Anne. I used to blow the trumpet when she came to visit us. So I was mixing with royalty, and although now I'd look at it from a point of view that I was one of the servants really, but the time when you're 15 it's a very exciting thing. But I was totally hedonistic really. I'd go to functions, play music, then after there'd be a rider, crates and crates of alcohol, beer, what have you. And I enjoyed the life. I joined the army really just for 12 months, but it was so enjoyable, the partying, that I stayed. Then I got friendly with a priest, Father Hayes, famous for being a priest at Falklands, and he asked me if I'd go and play music at Lord's for on a Jumbulance, which is a mobile ambulance. And on the in the Jumbulance there was a girl suffering from cancer, 16, dying of cancer, and I was very, very moved. And I couldn't understand how this young girl at 16, how she was so calm when she was going to be dying of cancer. It was inevitable she was going to be dying of cancer within a few days or a week. And this sparked up once again my interest in religion. So at Lord's I got into prayer, got into meditation, I got into thinking about God, and I got into thinking about myself and could I justify being in the military anymore after this experience of, even though it was only for a very, very short time, this experience of being at one with everything really, or what people would call a spiritual experience. So I had to re-evaluate my life and think to myself, could I, even though I wasn't shooting people, could I justify playing an instrument in the military which would entice people to join up, get themselves killed or kill other people? And the conclusion I come to was no, I couldn't. So I got out of the military, and what I wanted to do, first of all, I wanted, if I could, to learn to drive a coach and take people to Lord's. I found out I was crap at driving, so that was out. So I couldn't become a priest because I was married. So the next best thing really was to become a teacher. As Jesus was a teacher, in some ways it was like emulating Christ. And a way of, it was like a prayer really. My going to school, teaching the next generation of children was like a physical prayer. And that's really my spiritual journey up to that time. So I did 20 years teaching with all of its ups and its downs. It's absolutely fantastic moments, its downs, sadness. Some children I was teaching overdosed on heroin, so there was a sense of loss at times, but there's also a sense of jubilation at times to watch people leave better people than when they arrived. But when I retired, I wanted to carry on in some way, albeit a very, very small way, in glorifying God's creation really. So I took to an art career, and still at the back of my mind was what I'd done for years, the teaching, my interest in religion. So against perhaps my better judgment and against what everybody were telling me, I decided to use the theme of religion in my art. And my current project, which people are saying, oh, you can't, it shouldn't be doing that, it will not sell. Well, the aim isn't to sell really. The aim is to further promote an interest in the religious, the Stations of the Cross. So there has been through the centuries, different interpretations of Stations of the Cross. So the aim of these is not to try and be better, not to try and be different than other Stations of the Cross for the sake of being different. The idea is to attract a younger congregation, more interest in religion from youth. The youth, although they get a bad reputation, are searching for something. And all too often, especially in Manchester where I come from, they're searching for something more in their life, which is what I believe they're searching for, is a relationship with God. But what they're offered is drugs. So drugs for some, fill that void. So if we could fill that void within them with something a bit more meaningful, which is either finding themselves if they become interested in Buddhism, or finding Jesus if they become interested in Christianity, or Allah become interested in Islam, is to me is the way forward, a good way forward, because people are desperately searching for something more than what money and material goods can offer them. Over there we have our future playground, over there we have our new tomorrow. So open your eyes for a new tomorrow. On the wild side of town, take a walk with Jesus, take a walk with Buddha, take a walk with Krishna. It's a miracle. Take a walk with Jesus, take a walk with God, take a walk with Buddha, take a walk with Jesus. Hello?
So tell me, how do you want to go? Leave this world with nothing to show. You can be anything you want. So tell me, how do you want to go? Leave this world with nothing to show. You can be anything you want. So tell me, how am I supposed to know which direction you want me to go? I need someone to show me the way. tell me